Hello, my name is Doug Digital and welcome to today's video that is going to take you back to basics of your paid ads. It's going to be for those of you that are new to paid ads or are looking to bring them into your team, and I hope it's going to give you some actionable things to walk away and know how to measure your ads. So let's get straight into it, shall we? So we're going to start off today with a quick introduction to myself, your digital marketing expert. If you need to reach out to me, you can do so on all of the social media channels, or you can ask questions in the video below. Always happy to lend a hand. But of course, today my focus is not on me. It's about giving you some actionable tips and tricks that you can take into the workplace. So what we're going to go through today is we're going to go through the most common questions that anyone asks me whenever they're looking to start paid ads. And this is going to be really important for the purpose of this, because you need to understand the mindset that we need to have when we're looking to set up paid ads, in order that you can respond to these questions with confidence and you can respond to them with really valuable, meaningful questions of your own. So let's start with these three questions. Have you seen these before, perhaps? First question goes, how many leads can I generate for £100? How much should or could I pay for a lead? And how much profit did we make? Now feel free to say in the comments what you think is beginning to jump out at you from these questions. Is there anything missing from these questions? Potentially yes. Well, absolutely yes. And we're going to go into some of my common responses. What sector are you in? What is your average order value? What's your average profit margin? What is your site's conversion rate? Now, the reason for each of these questions is that every single one of them has a tremendous impact on the questions, such as how much money can you generate? How much can you generate for this amount of money? How much profit are you making? All of these are underpinned by these questions. So let's break it down. Let's go in first of all to a really simple visual breakdown of the paid journey. So this is a good starting point so that you can understand, when you do respond, where to think about. So obviously when we have our auction, our bid for ad space, we're going to pay money. We're going to pay sometimes per click, but we pay to have our ads surfaced to people, and then they click on the ad and we get a little bit of a charge. And then the next step, stage 2, is your viewer goes from your ad click to your website or your landing page. And the measurement from ad click to website is often referred to as your click-through rate. So how many of the people that saw your ad, they had an impression, how many of them then went on to click onto your landing page? There's your click-through rate. So they're on the landing page, they haven't spent any money yet, but then what they might do is they then might actually make a purchase. This is presuming an e-commerce funnel, which is a little bit shorter. So your conversion, they've bought something and you have an immediate pump in sales revenue. Now, sometimes there's an optional cost, which could be things like solutions that help you to optimize that movement from website visit to conversion. But generally speaking, this payment would be optional. So you've got, from the left, you've got your ad click. So you get charged, you pay money when someone sees and clicks on your ad. You then have a click-through rate, which then measures how many people came to your landing page. And then thirdly, you're going to then have the action, the conversion on the page here. And then you have your conversion rate from website visit to the action, the conversion. You'll have a nice conversion rate there, which is always important to know. And then fourth and finally, one of the most important things that people forget when they look at starting their paid journey: how much does it cost to serve up that product or that service or that good to your customer? Whether it's in, let's say, a retail store where they need to actually pay for the product itself and the delivery of getting that to you, or perhaps it is a digital good and you have to pay a commission, let's say. Whatever it is, there's a red flag there. So you've got two main costs. You've got your ad spend and your cost of goods or services, commonly referred to as COGS. And then your green number is your sales revenue. Now, while we're on here, I would say that the most common pitfall that people make is they fixate on this number here, sales revenue. Now, who's heard this before? I generated 800,000 for my business, my client last month. Doesn't mean diddly squat until we know how much you spent on the ad and how much you spent on delivering the goods and services. Then we can work out what your break-even figures are, what your profit margins are. We'll go through that later. So, key requirements, KPI requirements, key performance indicators. Whenever you get started with paid ads, it is essential that you know more than just your ad spend and you know more than just your revenue. As we've already seen, there are a minimum of 2 costs that we need to incorporate that a lot of people don't do. And so in order to measure your key requirements, I'm going to give you 4 key calculations. I'm going to give you a handful of definitions that I hope are going to be meaningful and tangible and they'll make sense to you. And then we're going to try and pull it all together and go back to those questions that we saw at the start. So first things first, when it comes to paid advertising, typically you're going to look at a couple of things. I want to keep it as simple as possible, give you 3 things to think about. Number 1 is your campaign objective. And we're going to break that down into 2 pieces. 1, how many sales are you targeting? Forget the cost, forget all of that. Think about how many sales are you targeting. You may have a number that you've already been issued. What is the number that you're targeting? It could be leads generated for B2Bs, which you then know will need to then convert into SQLs or MQLs into SQLs and then to converted opportunities 1. Or for B2C, it will typically be a conversion as a add to cart and then perhaps as a purchase. So know your number. How many sales are you targeting? How many leads are you targeting to generate? And then that will inform your budget based on your key metrics. Now, these campaign objectives you will refer to after we've gone through the definitions, because there are a few things that will inform you of this campaign objective cost and allow you to forecast accurately. One of those key metrics is your conversion rate. So it's good to have a target conversion rate in mind. Now, the reason that we need to know this is that if you know that your cost to get, if you know the cost to get traffic to your website, then you will also notice or know how many of the people that get to your website then go on to make a purchase. So then you can work backwards and you can say, well, if it is 5% of people that get to my page, then you're going to know approximately how many people you need to drive to the page in order to hit the campaign objectives that you had designated. We're not talking about how much that's going to cost yet. We're just talking about sheer volume. If you know that you've got a 5% conversion rate and you've got 100 people, you've got 5 sales. And then also, if you've got a 5% conversion rate and someone says to you, hey, you need to make more sales, but we can't really spend more money, then you can make some conversion rate optimizations to your page in order to bolster that number. So rather than a 5% conversion rate, you boost it to 6%. You've got an extra sale, which could be the difference between making profit or making a loss, or breaking your targets, or sitting comfortably. So your target conversion rate is very important. And then thirdly, when we talk about basics, is break even return on ad spend. ROAS, commonly referred to as ROAS, is your return on ad spend. For every pound that you make, or every dollar that you, every pound or dollar that you spend, how many dollars or pounds do you make? So it's normally expressed as a number. So your Facebook ads manager will say something like your ROAS is 8.6 or 5.2. That's your return on ad spend. So you've spent £1 and you've made, let's say, £5. That is not how much profit is in your pocket. That is revenue. Now, we remember from that journey, we've already spent money and we're going to be spending more money. ROAS is just revenue. How much you've made in sales, not after expenses, after costs of goods and services. And so what we then need is we need to know what should that number be in order for us to be profitable, so that when you look at your ad manager, you can start to make educated and smart decisions using rules on which ads are performing without jumping around the houses. So we're going to go into how to measure that as well later, but essentially your break-even return on ad spend says if you have a break-even return on ad spend of, so if you have a ROAS of 2, your ad is not profitable. But if it's 2.5 or 3.2, then based on your profit margins, you will be profitable. You will be making money. And you need to know that. You absolutely need to know that number so that you can tell your stakeholders and your businesses and yourself that you are generating returns. Okay. So with that in mind, let's go into some of those definitions. Starting on the top, we're going to talk about ad spend. We've already seen that number in the journey. So your ad spend is simply the approximate amount that you have spent on ads. Second, website conversions. If we haven't already established, a conversion is an action that you have designated. Typically, it's a purchase or a lead or a phone call or an add to cart, whatever you designate as valuable to you. So as I say there, it could be a purchase, a form submission, a phone call, a button click, or more. Thirdly, cost per result. So this is your designated ad objective divided by spend. So when you set up your ad, you will be given a variety of objectives loosely based on those conversion goals. What will happen in your ad management platform is that it will tell you, okay, well, your goal was to generate leads and you spent £100 and you generated 10 leads, therefore your cost per result is £10. 10 leads, £100 spent, they cost £10 each. And then fourthly, purchases conversion value. Again, this is a revenue number, not profit. Revenue. No costs have been deducted from this number. So how much money have the conversions generated? This is a number that looks good, but it is not reflective of your performance. Again, look out for those gurus on social media. If they're telling you that they've generated £1 million in revenue conversions, you know, and I hope we've established that there are several factors at play that will tell them if that's actually a good number, if that's actually making profit. We don't care about purchases conversion value right now. What we care about is bottom line profit. We want to know what is their return on ad spend. And so we can see there on the visual that purchases return on ad spend for every dollar spent, you have made this amount in revenue. So we can see in the graph, in the picture to the right hand side, this is a screenshot from a Facebook campaign, that several of those campaigns have a return on ad spend of, say, 6.85, 3.67, 4.38. My break even for this particular campaign was 2. That was my break even return on ad spend. So I know that every single one of those campaigns is making profit. Okay, so let's go on to the next page. Here we've got a couple of metrics that would allow you to measure how well your ad is resonating. So impressions is the number of times that your ad was seen. Cost per 1,000 impressions, often abbreviated as CPM. It's a little bit counterintuitive. You think cost per 1,000 impressions, CPM, how does that make sense? I often think that the M stands for impressions, but even then it's cost per 1,000 impressions. Do that with it as you will. So the average cost per 1,000 impressions is CPM, and this is going to give you a broad brushstroke view on how, essentially, how well your ad is being delivered to a large group of people. The lower the cost per 1,000 impressions, the more eyes are going to be on it. I don't think it's the best measure of success, but it's certainly one that can be useful if you're looking at a brand awareness campaign, a reach campaign, and you want that number to be quite low. Cost per click. This is a juicy one here. Cost per click, so cost per each click, and your ad spend divided by the number of clicks. So if you spent £100 and you've got 10 clicks, that's £10 per click. And your click is a great indicator of how your ad is resonating with your audience. So if you have a low cost per click, it tends to indicate that you've got quite an effective campaign because you're getting more clicks. So if you spent £100 and you've got 10 clicks, or you spent £100 and you've got 100 clicks, when you've got 100 clicks, your cost per click is going to be lower because more people are interacting. You've probably got a better quality ad. It's resonating with better people. The relevancy is higher. All of those things factor in. Click-through rate, again, another really powerful metric and great indicator of how relevant your copy is and your ad is. CTR is normally the abbreviation, and that is the percentage of people that have viewed your ad and clicked on it and then clicked on it. So we saw this in our visualization of the paid journey as well. So each of these four, again, in isolation, can be manipulated. They can be played with, but when you look at a holistic picture, each of them can play into a great forecasting. So I'm now going to show you 4 essential calculations. Take a screenshot, record these, write these down. You need to know these numbers. And if you want to differentiate yourself from other PPC marketers, other performance marketers, or you want to have clarity on how your performance marketers are generating profits, these 4 equations are going to be absolutely essential. So for each of them, in green is it's a positive number. It's money that's coming into your pocket, and red is your outflow. And each of these examples, what I've done is I've got the definitions at the top, and then below that I've got an example. So this first one here is calculating your GP, your gross profit. Your gross profit is the money that is in your back pocket after everything is accounted for. So revenue minus ad spend plus cost of goods. So in this example, we have $400 in revenue. So this will be our purchase conversion value that we saw earlier. This would be the number that people boast about. And then we add up our ad spend. In this example, it was $100. And then we add up the cost of delivering that revenue, the cost of delivering the products to the customer, the cost of the commission for generating those leads. And that gives us a combined deduction of $250. And so $400 minus $250 in expenses gives us a grand total, green profit, of $150. Now again, remember, the revenue number is one of the most manipulated numbers. You absolutely need to know this in order that you can measure your success. And so as a related metric that you'll need to know and you'll need to have in your back pocket ready for forecasting is your profit margin. So in order to do this, you start with your gross profit and you divide that by your revenue and then multiply that by 100. And then that can allow you to express that as a percentage. So $150 is your GP, your gross profit, and then divide that by your revenue, which will give you what? 0.37. I can't do great maths. And you times that, multiply that by 100, which can express that as your profit margin, your rate at 37.5%. That's all well and good. So now you know that if you have a product that, or let's say your profit on a product is £37.50 on a £100 product, you know that you've got a 37.5% GP, profit margin. So return on ad spend. Here we go. Another really essential calculation. So return on ad spend, ROAS, is your revenue divided by your ad spend. So your $400 divided by your 150 in your ad spend gives us a return on ad spend of 4. So for every dollar that you spend, you generate 4. And then that brings us on to our break-even ROAS. So you start here with the number 1, and then you divide that number by your average profit margin, that metric that we showed in that second calculation there. And so what this will tell us is that if we use the earlier example, our 37.5% average profit margin, that means that in our ad manager, if any of our ads are sitting below this 2.66% number, or this 2.66 number, that tells us that our ads are not profitable. Because while it's generating revenue, and you look at it, you think, oh, I'm generating $2.66 for every dollar that I spend. When you factor in your costs, and your expenses and your ad spend, you realize that actually you won't be making money, you won't be making profit for your clients and for yourselves if you are sitting below that number. And so we can use this as a fantastic measure for our performance. As we said earlier, when we set our 3 campaign objectives, we set our break-even return on ad spend. We work out what our average profit margins are going to be on our products. We work out what our objectives are going to be. So we want to generate 100 leads, we want to generate 100 purchases, and we know that if we hit a break-even below 2.66, we're going to be losing money. So we can start setting automatic goals. We can start setting some goals after the learning phase of our ads, where we say, any ad that or any ad group that is sitting below 2.66, kill it. And this means that you can take the power of automation in your stride. You can use automation based on your calculations and your forecast. But the most important thing is it takes emotion out of the game. It stops you playing this game where you think, well, I reckon we've got a winner here, and if we just leave it for a day, it's going to generate money. Get that mindset away. You only need to... PPC is a numbers game. It really is a numbers game. There's so much creativity that goes into those ads and the creatives, but at the end of the day, it is a numbers game. If you are not measuring your numbers, if you are not accurately reporting on your numbers, you will lose. And so use and leverage the numbers that you do have, that you do know, to measure and build and scale success. So that's my my lecture there. So yeah, do take screenshots of these 4 equations, please. So let's just recap those. So we started with our GP, revenue minus ad spend plus cost of goods and services. Then profit margin, which is our gross profit divided by revenue times 100 to represent it as a fraction, as a percentage. And then we have our return on ad spend, revenue divided by ad spend. And then our break-even return on ad spend, which is our 1 divided by average profit margin. So then let's have a quick recap. Why do we need these numbers? Why do we care? Gross profit indicates how much profit has been made after your ad spend and cost of goods have been accounted for. So this is the greens, this is the money that's in your back pocket. Excellent, great. Second, profit margin. This is your gross profit as a percentage and allows you to calculate your break-even return on ad spend. Thirdly, return on ad spend. As we know, this is going to be your returns for every dollar that you spend. And it's going to allow you to then track and measure your return, your break-even return on ad spend. So, there we go. We've got a duplicate of text there. Do you know your profit margins in order to establish a target break-even return on ad spend? Well, it's so important I put it there twice. So let's go back to these questions, shall we? 1, how many leads can I generate for £100, let's say? Well, we know that the leads that you generate are going to be determined by those flows through your ad, so your click-through rate, which is going to measure how many people go from your ad to your page. Your conversion rate, which is going to measure how many people can perform an action on your page. There are a couple more numbers as well that you'll need to know in order to measure how many leads you can generate, such as let's say your ad spend as well and your cost per click. But certainly your click-through rate and your conversion rate will help you to make some really strong forecasts there. So then we have how much should or could I pay for a lead? Now, in order to do that, we're going to need to know your break-even return on ad spend. So this is going to indicate to us your bare minimum, your threshold when it comes to your ROAS. You're also going to need to know your profit margin, and also a handy number to know as well is your average order value. So what is the average cost, or what is the average, revenue that is generated from an order, which would then allow you to work backwards and say, well, if this lead is going to generate an average, or this page, this product, this service is going to generate an average of 10,000, then that's going to give you a certain profit margin to play with, and then that can allow you to make your forecasts. How much profit did we make? Again, hopefully you can see from what we just covered that in terms of profit, you need to know your revenue, you need to know your cost of goods, and you need to know your ad spend. And then that can give you your profits, and you're going to be laughing. So that's been me today. 25 minutes of me rabbiting on. I hope you found this valuable. And I also hope that you know and can tell that there's so much more that we can dive into. But really the essentials are breaking down some of those numbers, understanding the key variables that are at play, and then, yeah, then we're good to go. So again, hello, I've been Doug Digital. If you have enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments below. If you found it useful, let me know. If you haven't, let me know as well. And I hope you've had a fantastic time. I hope you've learned something. And if you haven't, well, I hope that I can produce something for you to learn. But yeah, have a good one. Enjoy yourself and speak soon. Ta-ra.